listen, I know that you are probably just like me and you get the emails and you see the billboards and you drive by a sign, you're on your way home from the grocery store and you see a sign that says, hey, we've got interest rates at like 3.99% for a brand new home, or $25,000 in closing costs, or you see it on like Zillow, or you get on a builder's website and you're like, this is not real, right? Like, can they even do that? Is this a scam? And I'm here to tell you, it's not a scam. But there is some things you need to understand about that before you jump in full force thinking that you're getting something, because there are some details that you need to make sure that you understand. Like, is it even possible to get closing cost assistance? So I've got 4 secrets to reveal to you, to talk you through of what it means to get closing cost assistance or rate buy downs or permanent buy downs or any of these things when you hear builders talking about it to get you into new homes. If we haven't met before, my name is Zach. I help people like you all the time get into brand new homes. Here to help any way I can. So I got 4 things for you, but number 1, before I ever even get started, I just need to tell you, I'm a real estate agent. I'm not a mortgage lender, so I'm not like writing your mortgage. So I can just kind of talk to you at a very high level about what all of these things mean, what you should look out for, what you can do with them, and honestly, what these, like how these scenarios play out. So I'm going to give you my 4, and then we're going to look at the fine print from a couple of different, maybe 1 or 2 different builders on some things that they're showing right now. And then I'm actually going to get really, really practical at the end and show you what this might actually mean in terms of payment and which one might be the best for you. So here we go. Number 1, one of the things you'll see builders talk about right now and advertise is forward commitments. Like you won't see it called that, but like that's the internal term for them. And so basically it'll be like, hey, we can give you a 3.99% interest rate for the first year and a 4.99 fixed rate for the life of the loan. It's like, man, that's awesome, especially considering the fact that like mortgage rates right now are still like in the 7s. Like, let me look and just see, just out of curiosity, because I haven't looked today. And I'm always kind of trying to keep an eye on this. So got my daily rate average, good Lord, 7.24. So yeah, so that makes a home realistically unaffordable. So you see these rates, you're like, oh, how do we get there? Well, let's talk about it. So the first one is that forward commitment. So basically what happens, the best way I know how to explain this is builders, because they all either have their own in-house lending or they have a preferred lender that they work with. They go to the lender and say, again, this is kind of the Zach analogy of it. They go, hey, lending team, we really don't like these rates, but we need to sell some houses. What can we do? And they're like, well, glad you asked. So we'll give a forward commitment. And basically what it is, it's like saying, hey, you have a pond with fish in it, right? Can we get access to fish in your pond? And the lender says, yes, of course, you can fish in our pond, but there's only so many fish like that can be pulled out of the pond without us replenishing it. So the builder basically pays a fee up front to get access to said pond full of money to get these rates to where they need to be. And so they don't have it for an infinite amount of time. It's like, hey, once the money's gone, the money's gone. We can't do it anymore unless they buy more of those rates. Now, will they continue to potentially buy some of those rates? It all depends, right? It depends on what the market does. It depends on how many homes. If they see that this promotion is working really, really well, they'll keep buying into those pools as much as they can to keep giving people those rates, but they might run out. And so they go in and say, hey, we're going to buy this rate. We know what we can get you to. There are some caveats that come with this, and this is kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video, and we'll kind of get in and read the fine print. So they go in and buy the rates, and then in turn, they sell you the home, and then you get the rate, and which then saves you hundreds, in some cases, seriously, hundreds of dollars every single month. So the pro to this is great interest rates. The downside to this is it's very limited. And so if you see a builder advertising this, and especially if they're a bigger builder across multiple communities, you need to move quickly. So like this is the one where if you feel like the sales rep is pressuring you, like, oh, I just can't make a decision. I can't make, like, they're not trying to pressure you, but like legitimately when they say the funds will run out, the funds will run out. And the last thing you want to do is be thinking, hey, we're getting this, and then the funds just disappear because somebody else jumped on it and then they didn't buy into another pool. So you need to understand that. The cons on this, usually because of how much this is costing the builder, you're not going to get additional closing cost funds with this. Occasionally you might if you ask for it, but just know that like because of how much money they're fronting on a forward commitment, you're probably not going to get a ton in additional closing costs to help offset your cash to close. So there's the pro and con on that one. Second one we've got is builders offering temporary buy down. So this is very similar to the forward commitment. They put money out on forward, and then they'll say, hey, we're going to buy you, we're going to give you a 3.99 rate the first year, and then it's going to go back up, or we're going to give you 3.9, then 4.9, then 5.9 or whatever. So you'll see it as like 1-0 buy downs, 2-0 buy downs, 3-2-1 buy downs, right? So very simple. The way it's structured is basically, let's say, again, like we saw, market rate is 7%. Let's just call it a flat 7. And then a builder offers you a 3-2-1 buy down. So what they're doing is they're artificially buying your interest rate down 3% the first year, 2% the second year, 1% the third year. And then you go back to whatever market rate was when you got whatever the initial rate. So it would, like on the 7, it would be 4, 5, 6, 7. So payments 1 through 12. 4% payments 13 to 24, 5% payments 25 to 36 at 6%, and then the life of your loan would go for 3 through however long you choose to hold the home. So the pro on this one is you're getting lower payments on the front end, right? So like if you're trying to this is great in my mind a lot of times for our first time home buyers that are trying to stair step their way into payments. So you're going to get lower payments on the first end, but you have to budget that price is going to go up every year. Every year it's going to go up. The play on this one is to say, hey, we think by the time our buy down is done, the market rates are going to be better than what they are, and we can refinance. That's kind of the play here, right? Or it's like, hey, we're going to be only in this home for 3 years, and if you're buying new construction, you need to probably consider staying longer than that. So this is kind of where that it spreads it out, and they basically take that money, the interest amount. This is why I say it's artificial, because they take the interest amount and they basically put it in a savings account. So you make a payment, and then the savings account makes a payment, and it comes together and feeds it out, right? So one pro is lower upfront monthly payments. It's awesome. Con is, they're going to shift every single year, and they might shift more than you realize because you're also going to have your shift in property taxes, right? So as your home is assessed at a higher value, you're going to see that payment part go up, and you might see a significant jump. So you just need to be prepared on that end. And the other con, or the other thing you need to know, is you have to be able to qualify. So like when lending looks at it and they look at your debt to income and your credit scores, you have to be able to qualify at whatever the highest, like whatever the rate is, you have to be able to qualify there, and then they buy you down, right? So then they're just saying, hey, we've got money there to put this in play and, buy that rate down to something that makes sense. And, it might be a forward commitment, but realistically it might not be, or it might be a forward commitment to a certain number and then an additional 1-0 buy down on top of that. It really just depends on kind of how they're structuring those deals with what they're offering. Also with this might mean that you're probably not getting additional closing cost monies to help just kind of offset your other closing costs, lending fees, document fees, title fees, things like that that'll come into play. So that's a lot of information. I also want to tell you, you're like, Zach, I don't even know, like we're trying to look for homes and we don't, what's best? Where do we go? Like we're not here, or maybe we've been here our whole lives and we're just not sure. Here's the thing. I've built a brand new resource just for you guys. It's on our website. It's a really big interactive map. You can kind of click through a bunch of different areas in DFW. You can see any communities that we've covered in detail for those areas. You can see any information we have, some school information. You can also browse directly new homes only, because here's what I know. You get on some of those other websites and you're like, I just want to look for new homes, and it's hard to sort it out, and you don't know if you're looking at new or you're looking at pre-owned. I've got it set up so you can sort just new homes, and we can make it happen and find whatever it is you're looking for. So there's a QR code that's probably on screen somewhere right here. You're still watching this on your TV or you're watching this on your computer. If you're watching this on your phone, you can find the link in the description to get to this website. But if you're on one of those other devices, scan it. Listen to me keep talking. I got 2 more things to tell you, and you can kind of browse. Again, it's all there to help you. So give you a perspective on where you're going. Number 3. So 3 and 4 are probably, honestly, 3 and 4 might be 2 of my favorite pieces of this scenario, just because I'll explain it to you. So number 3 that you could find on the Financing Secrets is the permanent buy down. So this is where the builder comes in and pays the full they're called discount points. That's the term. So they're going to use the full discount points to get your rate down to where it is permanently fixed for the life of the loan. So like, it's like, oh, hey, we've got a 5.25 fixed rate for the life of the loan. And you're like, how are they doing that with rates being at 7? Well, here's the basic math of how that works is so one, and I'll have to just kind of talk this out, and we will go into detail in another video of like, hey, actually draw it out, show you the payments, how to spend the money. It's all good stuff. One discount point is equal to 0.25% of loan rate, right? So a quarter of a loan rate. So 4 discount points get you 1 whole rate. So if the market rate is 6 and you want to get to 5, you need 4 discount points. 25 times 4 is 1%. The cost of that point is 1% of the loan amount, not 1% of the purchase price, but 1% of the loan amount. So again, if you're, for simple math, let's say you're buying a house for $400,000, right? 400,000, you're putting 3% down or 3.5% down. That's a little over 12,000. So 400 minus 12,000, what is that? 388. So rough math, every one of your points is going to cost about $3,800 and change to get you those points. And so they're going to buy those points and it's going to permanently lower your rate. So like, you know, you go from 6.725 to 6.125 or, you know, whatever it is based on your credit score and what the market is doing. The thing I like about this is, you know, the math is very simple to calculate, number one, and number two, you know that it's going to lock the rate in regardless, right? So this is kind of for my people that they're like, hey, we're not really sure what the market rate's going to do. We think they might get worse. And if we think they might get worse, we might want to go ahead and lock our rate in now. And you know that the lenders will present that scenario and say, hey, here's what we should do. Go ahead and lock it in now. Use your money to get to whatever rate you want to get. And this can kind of be a little bit more of a higher upfront cost because again, you'll see it based on that math, how these points are being bought. But it makes it a predictable payment over the long term. So you just kind of got to take those and weigh them against one another. And also, if you're in this and you like sell the home or you refinance, you might not see the long term, the full benefit of that scenario. Number 4, this one is just what we're going to call a straight closing cost incentive, right? So this is the builder that says, hey, we're willing to give you $10, $15, $20, $25,000 in closing cost assistance. And you get to choose your own adventure. If you want to pay a bunch of discount points, you can do that. If you want a 2-1 buy down, you can do that. If you want to cover your lending fees, your title fees, your document fees, and do partial points, you can do that too. You know, this is, like I said, it's a choose your own adventure. There are limits, you know, based on lending guidelines on how much they can give you. You'll also see this, all of these are going to be tied with their in-house lending. This one in particular, you'll see it's like, hey, if you leave us, this one is the one that you might have the most chance of getting part of it to go elsewhere. And you'll see it in builder contracts. They'll be like, hey, this much, you know, 9,000 is tied to us and 11,000 is tied to our lending department. So you get 20,000 total. But if you leave, you can take the 9, you can't have the 11 kind of deal unless you negotiate for it on the front end. But yeah, so this one, it's the most broad and it allows you to do what you need to do with it to make the most sense. The one thing you cannot do with it is it cannot be used to make your down payment. So you're still going to have that 3, 5, 10, whatever down payment you're looking at, or, you know, if you're using a down payment assistance or whatever, the closing costs from the builder cannot be used to cover that. So it's a straightforward out-of-pocket savings. Again, it's kind of baked in with your pricing so they can give that to you and you do with it what you want. So there's good and bad on both, or on all 4. So if you were to ask me, Zach, what makes the most sense? I would say, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of what you feel like you're going to do, right? And this is not, we've still got to talk about the actual numbers and look at some scenarios, but it kind of is dependent on what you would actually want to do. If you plan on staying long-term, a permanent buy down would probably be the best. You plan on staying short term, maybe a temporary buy down takes the cake. I don't know. I am of the belief, and I've said this before in many different videos, is I want to control the asset for as little of my money out of pocket as possible. So whatever scenario gets me with as little money out of pocket at closing and gets my payment into a place that we're comfortable with, I think that's the route I want to go. But everybody plays the game differently. And that's where we just kind of need to look at the scenarios and say, hey, this is what they're offering. What can we do with this? And the builders we choose to work with, their lending departments are phenomenal at helping people talk through this and understand, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how we can use that. And if we can't do that, here's the alternative to what we can do, right? So I just, you know, there's options there. And again, my job is to help be a resource and guide and answer those things any way that I can. So I want to show you a couple of these that are running right now. And these are always going to be different. So depending on when you're seeing us post this video, this may not be the exact same promo, or it might be happening and they're just not they're out of those funds and they're doing something a little bit different. So the best way, as always, to stay on top of these things is for us to have a conversation. I did that weird. That was like a you and me and you. Have a conversation and we can chat about all the different builders. Again, if you're browsing on our website that we talked about earlier, you can see some of these promotions on there. And of course, just because you see it there doesn't mean we can't get a better price. We're always want to look at that. So let's look at the first one right here. So this is on the Trophy website. So you'll see this, check it out. It'll say like, hey, bundle up. This stuff won't last long. Rates starting at $399 or, not both, but or up to $25,000 in closing costs plus free washer dryer fridge, plus ask about a great refinance program. So it's like, hey, these communities, this is where it qualifies. Hey, we can do this in this community, $399. Hey, this community, we've got $50,000 in savings, whatever. But then you kind of get down here into this is like the fine print, right? And so I want to kind of point a couple things out. So it's like not valid on, it's got to be on. So this one for particular is like, hey, 131 to 214. So, and then they'll release another one on 214 for whatever they're doing. So it's like, hey, here's what we've got to be able to do. So borrower must pay a 0.5 point on a discount point. So we talked about that. Discount points can be covered using seller financing fees, or the borrower will appear as their expense. All financing and rate incentives are valid only for using our preferred mortgage lender. The home must contract by these dates. Offer excludes bond and down payment assistance loans. So you still have to have your down payment. Subject to credit approval. Not all borrowers will qualify. Closing cost amount. So they're giving you all the different scenarios in this packet. So then I want to point out this paragraph right here. So it's valid on these select homes, and then they give a example scenario, right? So FHA loan on a $350,000 home with 3.5% down would be a $343,660 loan amount, a 700 FICO score with a note rate of 4.99 up front. So principal and interest, not including taxes, $1,843 and a $10,000 builder credit. So they're giving you all the details. And I think a lot of times this gets missed. So there are qualifications that you have to make to get these deals. So like when we started this and I said, hey, is it a scam? It is not a scam. They are legitimately giving this money out. I've seen hundreds of closing disclosures where we've gotten clients so much money on homes, but we have to find the fine print. I want to give you another one just to show you I'm not like picking on them. This is everybody. Highland, love selling Highland, love selling Trophy. Buydown, too good to turn down. Year one of a 30-year mortgage rate at 3.99 and then a remainder of a fixed interest rate at 4.99. So this is going to be a combination of a forward commitment like we talked about and then a 1.0 buy down to get to this additional 3.99 on the backside. This kind of deal is not going to have any additional closing costs because all of the money is going to be tied up right here, right? So then we go down. Valid when you finance through Highland Home Loans. Got a contract between January 7th, January 31st, and closed by the first week of March. So then we get into their fine print, and I want you to see kind of what it says here. Offers are valid while supplies last. Funds are limited. This goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the video. Available on select move-in properties. Determined at their discretion. Offer is available on anything put into contract by these dates. Mortgage rate for the example loan possessed in terms of will be 3.99 first year with a monthly payment of $23.8419, $499 for the second year with a monthly payment of $26.1805, which again does not include principal and interest. Offer valid only on a conventional 30-year fixed loan, which means it would be a minimum 5% down. But I want you to see what this shows right here. Certain loan programs do not allow buy downs. Additional restrictions may apply. Loan scenarios based on 30-year fixed rate of a purchase of money loan for a single family residence, owner occupied, 740 FICO score, 20% down with a 500 loan estimate with estimated annual APR at 5.1. Again, it shows principal and interest only, no taxes, subject to change. So this is, again, these are great. Like, please don't hear me saying as we're looking at these, they're bad. Like, these are phenomenal offers. Phenomenal. You just got to make sure you read the fine print. And on something like that Highland one where it's like, oh, hey, this is what we've got to get to. If for some reason you can't qualify for the 3.9 and 4.9 or it runs out, they are always offering additional closing costs. And that's going to be the case with most builders. It's like, hey, we can do this, or we can convert it and say, hey, here's 15, 20, 25, 30. Just depends on the builder, depends on the neighborhood. But we can always try and go negotiate for those things. That's what I'm here for. So that shows you kind of the fine print on those. Now, I want to show you what the actual math looks like on one of these deals, because that's the thing that we all care about, is what is this actually going to cost me every month? Okay, so I have put my calculator on the screen, and so we're going to play with it for a second. Let me flip you guys back over there. Got it. Okay, so here's what I did. I calculated a 2-1 buy down. So remember, this is 2 points for the first year, 1 point for the second year, and then back to normal for years 3 through 30. Goodness. So on a 2-1 buy down, a $500,000 list price at a 5% down payment, starting at a base rate of 6.8, which is pretty close to where we are on the market side. Assumptions, we're going to say it's 30 years. We're also going to say tax rate is 2.4, and that is fairly average in DFW, depending on where we go. And insurance at about $1,800 a month. That's fairly average, give or take, again, depending on how big the home is. So this is going to give you this monthly. So here's how it kind of moves across. So 500 on the list price, interest rate. So base is 6, and then we go 4.8, 5.8, 6.8, 7.5. So the monthly principal and interest. So this is including everything: PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, everything. At its base is 45.28, right? Year 1, because of the savings, is 39.21. Year 2 is 42.17, and then we get back 3 through 30 to 45.28. So you can see it right here at 607. So you're saving $607 a month on year 1. $311 a month on year 2 for totals over $10,000 in savings between years 1 and 2. If we did this same scenario as a 3-2-1 buy down, the only thing we changed is we added one more year on that buy down and said, hey, let's look at that and see what it's going to be. So we now have saved $887 the first year, $607 the first year, second year, $311 the third, so $10,700, so almost $20,000 in savings. But like we were looking at, we need to look at this from a full scenario. So let's go back and take the Highland example. And they said, hey, this is going to be, let's do it like this. So this is going to be a permanent buy down, and it's going to be a $500,000 home. And we're going to do the 20% down payment. The interest rate is 6.875. Let's get to that 4.99, which I think should be, oh, nope, not 12. Is it 10? Nope, it's 19. Goodness, could you imagine? 4.6, 8, 7, and we're just going to start at 6.6 and 6.7. Okay, that gets us close. So if we started a 6.7 rate and we get to this, basically this is 4. Can I just change this right here? Can I do that? I can do that. Perfect. So 4.99 rate for the life of the loan. We can see that on this loan, it is basically a $28,000 seller contribution. So when I tell you, and here's the thing, the more house you buy, the more this is costing them. So when you're like, oh, Zach, why can't we get closing costs on top of this? Well, the builders are looking at this and saying, hey, we're already putting on the table $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 depending on the loan, right? And so there's a chance, but it may not happen. So back to here. So same thing, taxes and insurance. Again, we'll run that at $1,800 roughly, and then we'll compute to say, hey, what is this going to look like? So from what it would be 6.7 to buying down to that 4, basically 4.9, 4.99. I don't know why I did it at 4. So we went from a monthly principal and interest of $37.31 down to $32.95 and a monthly savings of $436. But then we also have to look at, like, so can we pull the buyer estimate? Yeah, I understand. Okay. Actually, I can't do it that way. I'll do it a different way. That's okay. So I'll show you what that one is. And then if I show you, hey, it's a permanent buy. So then just to show you for the first year, 3.99 on the first year, keep our same assumptions. That would then take our first year payment down to right about $3,000, but we're putting 20% down on a $500,000 house. So at that point, we're at 500,000. What is that? 20% times 0.2. So you're putting $100,000 down. So you're coming to the table with some serious coinage, right? So here's the challenge with all of that. So if we go look at this and we say, hey, 500, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're going to say this is 20%. We're going to say our interest rate is 4.99. They're going to pay for your buyer's agent because that's what a lot of builders do. We're going to say our hazard insurance, again, we're using the same numbers, guys, over and over, $1,800. I want you to see what it's going to cost you on cash to close on this deal. So they're getting that rate, like I said, to 4.99. your cash to close on something like this is going to be over $113,000 at that 20% down payment. So the math, you just got to make the math make sense. And this is where I'm talking about like, hey, let's get into something for as little out of pocket money as possible. Like if you want to put 20% down, we can definitely do that. But I think it makes more sense to restructure the deal a little bit differently and come to the table with less cash to close. And I want to show you that scenario as well. So same thing. So principal and interest, taxes are going to kill you here if you're not from North Texas, right? You're going to feel it because we don't pay state income tax, but we do pay property taxes. And if you're not from here, you're going to feel the pain of that. And like I said, 2.4 is about average. Some neighborhoods a little bit less, some a little bit more. It just depends. But if we take this same scenario and we say, hey, it's 500 and we do 10% down, but we don't get the full buy down, right? Because we didn't qualify for the full buy down. But let's just say they were able to buy us down to 5.99. So we're at $32.95 on a monthly payment here. We didn't change anything else. And our payment goes from $32.95 to over $4,000. So we've added basically $800 in our monthly payment. But look at the difference here. We went from almost $113,000 estimated, again, all of these are estimates, to $64,000 in closing costs, right? So the way I like to look at this math, and maybe this is not the way everybody looks at this math, but let's say it was let's just even round it out, 113,000, and then let's round up to that one, and that one's 65,000. So we have a delta, like a difference in cash to close at $48,000, right? And again, we changed our monthly payment, we went up a whole percentage point, which jumped us almost $800 a month. So then the next step in my math, my mental math, the way I think about these things is, so I want to know how long it would take me to break even on that difference. So I have $48,000 and I'm going to divide, we said it's basically, we're going to call it $800 a month, or we're going to call it an 800 difference. So we went from 4,000 roughly to from 3,200 to about 4,000 roughly. So 48,000 divided by 800 is 60 months divided by 12 is 5. So 5 years on this one is the break even point, right? So then the question becomes, if you're looking at this, it's like, okay, well, what could I do with $48,000 over 5 years, and could I make more money with that? And maybe this is just me being crazy, but this is the way my mind thinks about these things. So it's like, I want to control the asset for as little of my money out of pocket as possible. So going back to our 4 scenarios, I like it best when the builder just says, hey, here's your pot of money and let's figure out the best way to do that. Now, there are some scenarios where their buy downs do make sense. There are some scenarios where, getting from their forward commitment makes sense. But in most cases, I think I would rather just have the pot of cash and say, hey, let's figure out with your lender what makes the best scenario for you. And I think that's the biggest thing in all of this is like, this is not a cookie cutter process. So like what works for one of my clients is not going to work for another one of my clients, right? And so we want to work together to find the ultimate thing that makes the most sense for you guys. And that's really what we're here for is to be honest with you and just say, hey, here's the numbers. Here's what it looks like. This is also where I'm like, hey, don't call me and be like, hey, I want a $500,000 home for a $2,000 monthly payment, and I don't want to put more than like 15 grand down, and be like, well, whatever you're smoking, let me have some. I'm kidding. I'm good. It's just not realistic. And I want you to make sure you're realistic in those things. And we're going to do we got a whole other video coming about like actual realistic payments and what those look like and where we should be looking and all of those crazy things that go with that. So hopefully that helps you feel better about builder finance secrets. There's, like I said, those are the big 4 that they kind of play with and use interchangeably based on the season. And you're like, how do we navigate this? And some of them do different things. And so lots of questions. I get it. I know you have those. We can always help any way we can. Last thing I'm going to tell you, another resource we've got for you is if you're looking to relocate here and you want to know some of my favorite neighborhoods, favorite places to look, and some of my favorite restaurants, I've got a relocation guide. It's down in the comments or it's in the description. You can check that out as well. Again, just trying to put things out to be helpful to you guys any way we can. So go get that money from the builders. Get as much of their money as possible and spend it wisely. We'll see you in our next video.